Hey, how you doing? Hello all. And I'm just making sure that everything is set. This is a somber. Hey, silver and black. It's somber. Somber because this is the time I want to devote to opening up a dialogue on what happened today, and we can then morph into our usual discussion. This is something that's necessary to have. Hey, John, how you doing? John says, "Papa, mama, Papa, mama." Ho 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 ho! Back into my smile, child. Hey, that is why. That is why. That is why. That is why. She is my shuba diddy you. Yeah. Shama lama. My llama llama ding dong. Is that what you're talking about? Ooh mama. Hey Octavio. Ho, 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 ho. Back into John Marks just put that in my head. That's if you don't know where that's from, that is from thank you. The Rivertons sing Papa Mama. Ho, 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 ho. But you know what I was thinking about though? I was thinking about Animal House. Remember Otis Day in the Night sang she put the mama ho 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 back into the smile child. That is why, that is why, that is why, that is why you are my shuba diddy doo. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, I'm actually not going to sing. The reason Animal House had that song. The reason I am opening this up is that America was shocked today by something the person who's supposed to be our sitting president of the United States did. And he uh, basically, what he did was he violated the cyber stalking portion of the Violence Against Women Act. Okay? Now, as to whether or not he actually completely clearly stepped over the line is enough for debate. But I contend it's enough to bring charges against him on, if not have him civilly sued. Okay? We've never had this before. Ever. Ever. In our history. Okay? And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, what happened was that President Donald Trump issued a tweet a series of tweets against Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough on a morning show called Morning Joe. I happen to be acquainted with Joe Scarborough. I had the pleasure of interviewing him just before after the first inauguration of Barack Obama as president of the United States. And so Joe Scarborough is a former congressperson, deep political operative, well liked by a number of people, and including the person who's now our president. But the person who's now our president is not of the common Washington stock. In fact, it's more than him not being part of the common Washington stock. He has been almost from birth coddled and used to getting his way. Now he's got the ultimate prize presidency, but he's not one who was formally educated in the ways of the world beyond real estate. And particularly with women, he's used to getting what he wants, which is, in our history and his history too, has not been always the best thing, as we've seen. So now he's president. And because he's president, in his mind, he feels he has a license to do anything he wants because nobody has come up and said, hey, you know what? this is wrong. You need to resign or go to jail. But I'm telling you, Donald Trump has taken the closest step yet toward that direction on Thursday. It was pretty awful. And it was really awful. So before I, take your comments on this, and I can understand if a lot of you don't want to talk about it, but you know what? I do. Because one thing that you have to understand, and the one thing that I'm quite literally going to force feed down this system, it starts off with this statement I'm about to make, and I know that people who are in my age bracket, like John Marks and Barry Lee, will agree. If you are not aware of history, you are doomed to repeat it. There are people among you who have no idea who G. Gordon Liddy is. I met G. Gordon Liddy. I've debated G. Gordon Liddy. I beat G. Gordon Liddy, and I was a 19-year-old in college. Okay? I'm very proud to say that. And I was vice president of the Forums Council. So, it's G. Gordon Liddy is a fanatic. The kind of person who, if you told him jokingly and you were the president, hey, I wanted so-and-so gotten rid of, he'd take it seriously and he would engineer the process to do that. How do I know that? Because he told me. Because he told me. There are people on this earth like him. He helped engineer Watergate. It's very important to know your history. I asked a friend of mine and I said, do you know who G. Gordon Liddy is? Nope. Know your history. It's very important to know your history. It's not even just Watergate. And like Tanner brings up a question that I think really helps set the tone. He says, Zinni, with all the disgusting things talking about the president he's done, and said, what do you think it will take for some of his base to abandon ship? He has been a very dangerous president, but that 39% doesn't decrease. Actually, it does. Because part of that base were Republicans who were willing to tolerate him as long as they got what they wanted. And I could sort of prep myself for tonight by having this conversation with a friend of mine, but I'll say this. There are people in and out of government, I call them political operatives, who do nothing but engineer outcomes. Sometimes they do it for corporations. Sometimes they do it for very rich people. Sometimes they do it for purely political reasons. And it's those people that use people like Donald Trump until they don't need them anymore. Some of those people are some of the senators and congresspersons that spoke out on Twitter and on television against what Donald Trump did. People who in the past have never said anything before. Take Lindsey Graham, who's been critical of President Trump, but not to the extent of when he answers a question, he cocks his head like, let me get out of here because I don't want to deal with this. He's making them look bad. And when you make people in visible positions of power look bad, it affects the invisible people who are in positions of power, who engineered their getting there, look bad too. And what that spells is a path to try to figure out how to take power away from the person who's in charge. And that is where we are at right now. I mean, when I say it, take power away, am I talking about impeachment? Not necessarily, but that's an option. Am I talking about simply just ignoring him? That's the bigger option. By simply just not passing anything that he wants done so that he becomes inert, ineffective, a do-nothing. That's the course you're seeing right now. We have never in our history, as a United States of America, post-war, what I know about, had a president like that in that position, okay? And when a president sees himself stripped of power that way, what that person may do to gain power back is the biggest wild card of all. And Donald Trump presents that wild card. And it's my prediction that he may do something very rash along the lines of what we saw today in his frustration. What that will be, I do not know. But I'm saying that his makeup is of the type to have that happen. And I'm not saying this with glee, and I'm saying this fully aware of, whom would hear this, right? And listen to it. And I'm saying to them, look, if Donald Trump is your person, your president, you need to make absolutely certain he understands that there is an overarching power structure over him and laws over him that others now are trying to figure out how to activate to control him in some kind of way. He has now become the president that others are asking, how do we control this guy? And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not talking about being wild and crazy like where the nuclear button is. No. No. Again, the military people liked him because he was kind of letting them do what they wanted, right? But now, with that behavior, it sends a signal that he's not presenting an image that they like. So they're less likely to be so careless and more likely to focus on, hey, how do we make sure our system is stable beyond, President Trump? And that simply means ignoring President Trump, going around him in ways that he didn't even know existed. I'm just explaining to you what power does to maintain its position. Because right now, Donald Trump has threatened the power positions of a number of people that by his ascendancy they're already there. But now they got to do their little pet projects because he's in place. Okay? He's threatening that by his behavior, just by that behavior. Because the presidency is supposed to stand for, at the end of the day, a person who's exemplary of the rule of law. Not who flouts it or comes close to flouting it whenever that person feels like it. Now, as to whether or not he's done, that's debatable. But to be in that house is a place that only one other president has been, and not even to this degree. For all of his faults, President Nixon was never so boorish, never boorish at all, that people thought ill of him after office. He left office, he resigned, laid low for a while, but he resurfaced as an elder statesman. And when he passed away with dignity, the way presidents should do. That's what I'm talking about. We have a tradition in this country of presidents that we can turn around and be entirely proud of. And Donald Trump has to maintain that line. And right now, he's not doing it. All right. Your comments. So, Jabber had something, Tanner, I'm sorry, said, Zinni with, okay. I talked about that. John Marks said, oops, sorry, G. Gordon Liddy. Wasn't he on 560 KSFO? He was. John Marks says, didn't he go to prison for Watergate? He did. I interviewed him afterward. Octavio Arias says, go Warriors. Being on the right does not mean that Trump represents decent people values. John Marks says, hello, Octavio and Tanner. And Octavio says, hi, John. Tanner says, hey, John Marks. 831 Scott, how are you? He says, hello, Zinni and everyone. John Marks says, Donald Trump is a bad president by far. Go Warriors says, I won't talk very much tonight because I'm on the right and I support Trump. Tonight, I don't want to be in trouble because I might talk a lot of shit off my mouth on the issues. But Go Warriors, I'm going to say something to you, all right? And it's not a matter of being in trouble with me. I'll get to that in a second. This goes beyond that. And I don't mean to offend when I say this, but you're 17, okay? And I'm not saying you don't have the right to believe what you want to believe. I'm not talking about left wing or right wing. I'm talking about how you treat women, okay, in this society. I'm talking about how you conduct yourself in this society, young man. That is what I'm talking about. And that goes beyond politics. And it's important you know that now. And I'm certain good people around you would agree. This has nothing to do with politics. Okay? There are elements of my belief that are staunchly Republican. Most of my elements are staunchly Democrat. I am not a progressive. But that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Nothing. Okay? So, John Mark says, just ignore the Trump. Wouldn't it be hard, hand the country of the Russians to North Koreans? Nope. John Marks, no. Octavio Arias says, have a respectful opinion does not get you in trouble. That would make us closed-minded and biased. Octavio gets the comment award for the day so far. John Mark says, hello, Go Warriors. You are a good guy. Yes, Joe Warriors, you are a good guy. And everyone is entitled to their opinion. I insist on maintaining American culture, and that includes a strong democracy. So, Barry Lee says, Go Warriors, Zinni won't be mad about you. Right, I'm not going to be mad at all. And so Corey says the military doesn't do what it wants. It's under complete civilian control. Trump passed authority of the Pentagon, which is the most responsible thing to do. Except that the president is the commander-in-chief. Okay? Don't forget that. The president is the commander-in-chief and can crap the whip whenever he chooses to do so. But you have to remember, Congress can intervene. And if Congress has a feeling that it's dealing with someone, the president, who doesn't have the right have the right, shall we say, position in his heart, it can choose to intervene. But it's not just the people that we see. What I'm talking about is not the... I'm talking about operatives. I'm talking about people that are lobbyists, people that are not paid. You don't understand how Washington works, okay? A lot of you have this idea that it's just what you see on television and, oh, you know, it's the left and it's the right and all this garbage you hear in the media. If you believe that and you think that's as far as it goes, I'm going to tell you something. You're a fool, okay? You're a complete fool. The real Washington is full of people who came up to Paul Ryan while I was talking with Paul Ryan at the inauguration in 2012. Patriot who has his own nonprofit, speaks one line all the time regarding the flag, respect for the flag, raising money for his pet projects, and that's what this guy does every single day. There are people in Washington who hold their ideas, and they've established companies around them. People like my friend Christy Kaufman, who runs Code of Support. You know, on the shirt that you have, Barry Lee, okay? These are people who really believe to the nth degree in what they're doing. And they'll do anything to maintain their idea. And I mean anything. And they join together at times. Some of them are like Roger Stone. You ever ask yourself where Roger Stone came from? Do some homework. Get to know get to know how your country really works, okay? Forget all this garbage you see on television. Read. Don't be a fool. And then you'll get what I'm talking about. Now, Corey says, as much as we might like it or not, you can't impeach a president because of a stupid tweet. That's not what I'm talking about. 831 Scott, it's important to vote Democrat in the midterm and try to give the Democrats some control. Trump has some serious mental issues, and that's scary. Yet the trouble is that the Democrats haven't figured out how to regain power. And I'm saying that as a Democrat. The Democrats lost their way in terms of understanding how to activate operatives. Barack knew. Our former president knew how to do it. Hillary Clinton didn't know how to do it. Her husband knew. But Hillary's got her own ideas and she doesn't want to listen. Okay? I'm just saying. So, just being honest. So, Octavio says military without civilian oversight will lead to a militarized government. I would know. That's an interesting point. Barry Lee says, Corey, the military has followed every president and has never done what it wants. Jamal, how are you? Barry Lee says, where did I leave off? Jamal. Barry Lee says, oh, Haley, hello, Haley, how are you? She says, Marnus. John Mark says, hey, Raiders, Haley. LX, are you going to Comic-Con, Zinni? I'm approved to cover Comic-Con, yes. Don't have my hotel yet. LX. And thank you for responding, John. Barry Lee says, I believe he is, and I am. Go Warriors says, be right back. I go back and look at the tweet and determine what I think after reading the tweet. Yeah, read. See, Warriors haven't read the tweets. It's more than one. Read them. Okay? John Mark says he needs a sponsor for Comic-Con. I do. Yes, I do. And John, yeah. And Barry Lee says, hello, Giorgio. Donis, how are you? Barry Lee says, I believe once Trump has burned enough bridges, the Republicans will vote to impeach, especially after midterms. He's really hurt a significant part of his base, just like that. I mean, he basically took a match to it, okay. No one wants to be associated with that. I don't care left, right. I don't care how far right you are. And among those who talk about his 39%, look, I'm telling you, about half of his 39% is like, hey, I don't know this guy. All right? Because what people forget is that Donald Trump was never really about them to begin with. He was about his own ideas of government. He earned a lot of money. I'm not going to take this, even though I may not like what he has done, I'm not going to take away from him the fact that he is a great builder of buildings. Let's get that out of the way. He is a great builder of buildings. No question about it. No question about it. But just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at something else. And let's face it, he got lucky in becoming president by hooking himself up to people who understood how to gain power. The people who understand how to gain power today are largely in the Republican Party, not the Democratic Party. We used to have them in the Democratic Party, but that's because President Obama understood the need to have some of those Republicans, and then have some of the Democrats, but then have some of the operatives I'm talking about that really don't care about being left-wing or right-wing so much as they care about power. Those non-profit operatives I was talking about, those true believers. Barack knew how to talk to them. He knows how to talk to them, okay? So again, one thing you have to understand is this. Washington is about one thing. It's not left wing, it's not right wing, it's about power. It is about power. And when someone's power is threatened, they take action to maintain it. Now, that's what I'm talking about. All right? So, and Ms. Zyka says, Trump will not apologize tonight if you say anything that embarrasses him. The bar can never be too low. Anything is fair game for him. Ask Megyn Kelly. But see, Megyn was one thing. The trouble is that Megyn had no political juice. Okay? But Mika Brzezinski, her dad was Zbigniew. Zbigniew Brzezinski is a gigantic player in international politics. Or was, rest in peace. Joe Scarborough, former congressman. As I said, I met him. He is one of those true believer types, okay? He knows people that are like the ones I'm talking about. These are serious people. You do not screw with them. Okay? You do not screw with them. Trump screwed with the wrong people. Megyn Kelly, whatever. He screwed with the wrong people. So, we've got, and John Mark's right. It is about power and money. Haley says the donor class runs this country. Thank you. Haley gets the award. The donor class runs this country. It's not democracy. It's a corporate duopoly. Haley's right. Thank you, Haley. Thank you. Haley's right. Okay? She's right. And I don't care who you are. It's not a matter of that, slapping you back in line or anything. No. It's a matter of, it's a democracy. Those who seek to get elevated in it, in that way, in terms of power position, they wind up living in Washington or working with people in Washington who are operatives. Okay. And that's when, I mean, when you're in, that's when you're in a different area of society. A friend of mine said it best. I remember we were at the Embarcadero for Beta Breakers, and this was 1999. And he said, and I met him over there, and it was a sunny day. And I remember he said, you know, New York's about money. You know, I've got deal with this investment banker. I've got a meeting over here, right? And then he said, Washington is about power. I got a meeting with Senator so-and-so, and I got a meeting with Congressman so-and-so. But the Bay Area, it's about leisure. Look at all these sunglasses. It's different. Washington's a different place. And you haven't been there, and you don't. I'm not talking about left and wing and right wing politics. I'm talking about power. Washington's a different place. And power players understand how to bring everybody together. That's why a lot of power players are frustrated. Because you have some people who don't quite get Washington, like Trump, okay? And I'm telling you, those folks, they're not in office long. You know, the Joe Walshes and those guys, they're like one term and they're gone. The steady players, the people who are not trying to get elected, they're trying to manipulate the people who are elected. And sometimes they succeed. Haley's got it right. Thank you, Haley. Haley's got it right. Tanner, let me see. Haley says, Cory Books is just another Leo liberal. But Haley, do not underestimate Cory, all right? Because again, you're falling into that trap. Look, you say he's a neoliberal, there are elements of me that are neoconservative. The power people are neos. Neo is just another way of saying, you know what? We really are not party people. We're power people. So you can get off by saying that, you know, he's a neoliberal or I'm a neoconservative or whatever. You're missing the point. He's a senator. He was a mayor. I'm talking about power. What is power but the ability to say, I did that behind the scenes? A lot of people who are in power, people whose names you've never heard of. Again, I asked you all about Roger Stone. Okay? I've talked to Roger Stone. I talked to Roger Stone 5 years ago. He's wrote a book on who shot JFK. Roger Stone is a different guy to talk to. I'll just leave it at that. And he has some people with him who he is associated with who are equally different people. And I'll leave it at that. Okay? So, all right. Now, how about Cory Booker? Okay. And the donor class, yeah, I got that one. Anyway. Tanner says, what do you think McConnell will do with his power being challenged with a disastrous wealth care bill? That's not going to go anywhere. And now it's guaranteed not to go anywhere. Mainly because, look, again, what President Trump does not understand is that Barack Obama was the perfect power player. He got ACA passed by the strength and power of his personality and his willingness to work with anybody. You have to see Barack in action to understand Barack. When he looks at you, it's almost like he's saying, what's this cat all about and how can I relate to him? Okay? When a person starts that way, it's something to learn. I haven't learned it. I'm learning. But he's got it down. Go Warriors, are you back? Are you checking this out? Okay. Right. But Warriors, I want you to pay attention to this because you're young. All right? This isn't about left or right. That's simplistic. What I want you to remember is this. If something is very complicated or you think it's too complicated, don't run away from it. Dig in and try to understand it. Particularly when it has to do with politics. And always ask the question, who is this person associated with that I don't know about that's not in my face on television or something else? Like I asked the question about Roger Stone. I still haven't got an answer from anybody. Okay? Because I was thinking, how did Donald Trump get mixed up with, of all people, Roger Stone? Wow. Roger Stone is one of those operatives. Just like Mike Flynn. Why do you think President Obama fired Mike Flynn, okay? Because Mike Flynn is careless with power. He's an operative like a G. Gordon Liddy. Keep that in mind. I'll say it again. He's an operative like a G. Gordon Liddy. But he is careless. And what happens is that when he is careless to a person who's president, it means that he is a person who will threaten their power position. So Obama broomed him fast. But Trump, being so anti-Obama because Donald has an issue about powerful black people, woohoo! Okay, I'm just saying, okay? He's got that issue, okay? Because he has that issue, he didn't listen. In fact, he was thinking, oh, because Obama doesn't like him, I'll bring him in. Big mistake. So here you have Barack Obama being kind enough to give President Trump the keys to the power kingdom, and Trump has not paid attention. That's what leads to that kind of behavior that you saw in that tweet. So this left-wing, right-wing garbage is precisely that. It's garbage. It's something to keep the masses happy and warring among each other. While that little group of associations continues on to run the country as they and their values see fit. And their values are vastly different from those who only know pedestrian politics. Those people who know pedestrian politics wind up getting used again and again and again. And Republicans have more people who understand how to use them than Democrats do. That's why Democrats are not winning at elections. You understand what I'm saying? All right. So, thank you, John. Thank you. I voted Obama in both elections. Yeah, I did too. But see, I also voted for Arnold Schwarzenegger in both elections in California. Why? I'll tell you why. I remember distinctly when Kamala Harris, who I know, was running for DA. And she won. And the legendary Senator John Burton walked by me. Never met the man before. He's a legend in California political circles. Democrat. Never met him. He walks by me and he tells me to F off. I'm thinking, where's this coming from, right? I mean, in fact, I said, hello, Senator, and he said that. And I stopped like, so what do I do with that? And then I begin to think, hey, you know what? When a person does that, they do it because they believe that their power is unassailable. So I was to be a guest on KQED Forum because I had a column in those, I was writing and blogging, I was still known, right? And I said right then and there that I was going to vote for Arnold Schwarzenegger and not the Democratic Party. And it made an impact. A small one, but it made an impact. Why? Because I believe that my party, my Democratic Party, needed to be taken down a notch, to be taught a lesson. We were getting too big for our britches. Just like Donald Trump got too big for his britches. And you say he's the president of the United States. Remember what I just said. This is bigger than him. He's got to act like it's bigger than him. He has to have an appreciation for that. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm a person trying out to be on The Apprentice. I have no animus toward Donald Trump. The reverse. As a person whose background is urban planning, I've always admired what Donald Trump has done from a perspective of builder. Okay. So if Trump, and I've said this before and I'll say this again, if Trump had maintained the idea of repairing America's infrastructure and sending all the right messages there, I'd have went over to help him out because he would have been speaking the kind of tone that was a continuation of the Obama tone. Let's bring everybody together. Let's rebuild the country. But he didn't do that. And he thought that by working with the kind of operatives I'm talking about and sending that tone that ignites that base, he would get elected. It worked because there are a certain strain of Democratic Party among us who are African Americans who don't vote in off-year elections, and we have a fatalist idea that we need to work on so that it doesn't take us out of politics in terms of power positions, okay? Which is happening. So, but because of that, Donald thought, okay, I can work with these guys. I can make all these other people upset, say anything I want to, work with the Russians and allegedly do something nefarious and win. And that's what happened. He won. Okay? With those operatives helping him. But now those operatives a lot of those operatives are concerned. So, all right, Haley says Donald Trump isn't the problem. He's a symptom of the problem. Continue that thought, Haley. John Marks says, I'm a liberal since 2000. Why did you change? Barry Lee said, John Marks and Zinni, it's a shame Arnold couldn't run for president. It is. Jamal Mills says, go Warriors. Having a black in office doesn't mean you like the race. And that's true. Go Warriors says Trump liked black people because he has Ben Carson. No, Go Warriors, that's not the case at all. I'm going to tell you something. Donald Trump has never had as a friend in his business affairs anyone black who's a billionaire like he is. Like, for example, Dick Parsons of AOL, okay? Just a few blocks down in Manhattan from him, all right? So, he's never had that. Ben Carson says bad things about black people. Ben Carson is what African Americans call a self-hating black person. But the trouble is, some political operatives among the GOP like people like that because it makes them feel better about their positions. Okay? The Ben Carson types are okay as long as they're playing along with that idea, as long as they're getting their power position, what their little bitty crumbs are. And that's what they are, crumbs. But Ben Carson is not a Dick Parsons. He is not, or any other of the other very wealthy African Americans you don't know about who built things that you use. Like, for example, the longtime CEO of American Express, Ken Chernow, black. I mean, long time. I think longer than you've been on this earth. Okay? I mean, this is how the world really works. There are blacks who make apps and have media companies, make money. Not me. They made the right moves, but they stay way under the radar and they're operatives. They have their power positions. That's what you have to understand. This world is more complicated than you get. Now, Go Warriors, you're only going by what you see on television. Do not go by what you see on television. Assume this. You don't know. Because when you don't know, you become a sponge. You read everything. Read the books by John Kenneth Galbraith. For example, who do you read today politically? What book do you read? Is it Milton Friedman? Do you know who that is? You know what I'm talking about, John Marks? See, the problem is that today, people who are Go Warriors age don't have that public intellectual mindset. And what I mean by that is they know they're interested in everything. And they might have a little Hayek over here, a little Thorstein Veblen over there. Maybe they concocted their own ideas. All right? Maybe they've built their own calculus, okay? That existed when we were coming along. Today, where is that person? Who is that person? Who are the public intellectuals today? I'm just asking. I hope somebody out there realizes what I'm trying to say. I kind of feel like, it's not quite hitting home, but it's worth trying. Don't be one of those folks. Be the folk, because if you are one of those folks, you're going to be part of a growing group and not the group that really pulls the strings. Those power people that I'm talking about. Many of them who live in Washington or work with Washington operatives at some point. Yeah. So, and so it's not a matter of being dull. And 831 Scott says Trump is hell-bent on doing everything that Obama did. It makes you scratch your head and wonder why it couldn't be because he was black, could it? It could, but see, that's what everybody recognizes that. And see, look, there's a book that I want you, Gore Warriors, are you still there? Because I think this will, if Gore Warriors is able to get this book, heck, I'd even buy it for him. Ms. Zeitgeist says, Republicans love people, Ben Carson and David Clark, even though David Clark tricked people running for sheriff. And is Gore Warriors around? Is Gore Warriors, are you around? So make sure that he's around. Maybe not. I'm going to say this anyway. Gore Warriors says, like his motto, make America great again. Well, but the whole point is that America was never not great, Gore Warriors. All right? We went from, see, when you, 10 years ago, you were 7 years old, 6. We had an economic crash that Obama got us out of. Because of the Economic Recovery and Tax Act, all right? Got us out of it. He then turned his attention to the Affordable Care Act. When he came into office, we lost, I believe, 2 million jobs, was it, in one month? Something like that. It took us 2.5 years to dig out of that hole. But we did it. Okay? Are you there? So my point is, yeah, and see, I don't think, but see, Go Warriors is, it's bad to have a young mind that doesn't want to learn. But Ms. Zeitgeist points out that Freeman Chicago School followers wrecked Chile. They not only wrecked Chile, they threw a choke chain around the American colony, Ms. Zeitgeist. Remember that? Now, what we're talking about in this case, and Ms. Zeitgeist brings up a great point, is Milton Friedman and Paul Volcker were big advocates in changing how the Federal Reserve governs our money supply. We used to pay attention, well, to the interest rate, okay? But then they turned to monetary policy. And instead of looking at the interest rates, they looked at the money supply. I figured the money supply was too great. And what they did was basically threw a choke chain around the economy, all right? So, but hey, Go Warriors, there's a book I want you to read, okay? And it's called The Irony of Democracy. It's by Thomas Dye and L. Harmon Ziegler. And it changed my life because it talked about how Washington is actually ran by an elite class. People who went to schools like Yale and Harvard. People who went to the John F. Kennedy School of Government. I interviewed to be a student at the Kennedy School of Government, but it was too expensive for my mom to get me into, so I went to the Berkeley School of Planning, okay, which was the best school in the country. And in those days, you could go in-state for $1,200 a year. Can't do that today, all right? But my point is that the Rockefeller Foundation in the mid-60s, after the death of John F. Kennedy, funded the creation of these public policy schools in 3 places. The University of Texas is public policy school, Harvard and the John F. Kennedy School of Government, and Berkeley in what's called the Goldman School of Public Policy, okay? So, and the idea was to teach a class of people specifically trained for government work, who could take microeconomics and understand how to use microeconomics as a tool to determine, for example, how to allocate street sweepers, right? You have X amount of street sweepers, Y amount of dollars for the street sweepers, for gas and everything. How can you allocate them over what period of time to get the biggest bang for your buck? Microeconomic utility theory apply to that. Then there are people who, like myself, were trained in that, or system dynamics, of which I'm an expert, which was created by Jay Forrester at MIT in 1956. A whole kind of techno policy class of people were born out of the 60s. And that techno policy class served to restructure government as we knew it prior to that. That's a class of people that doesn't care. Notice I didn't say anything about party, did I? I talked only about policy, about hard tools to analyze it. Now, if you don't know that language, you can't talk the language. I learned that the hard way in undergraduate school. All right? So, Harry Dunn says, you're a, let's see here. Let's see here. Good night, governors. Let's see. Harry Dunn, Americans great with Jamal when we started. Hey, Harry, no insulting people, okay? Then I would appreciate that not going on. Octavio says, to make America great again, we need to regain the tax brackets of the 50s. And Milton Friedman was a conservative. He wasn't so much a libertarian, he was a conservative. Let's see here. Jamal Mills, so the 50s where we had Jim Crow laws. Okay, all right. Hey, welcome back, John. Ms. Zeitgeist says, it's freedom to choose. Milton Friedman pointed to Hong Kong as an example of the free market at work, which I question. I'm not questioning that he did that. I'm questioning his logic in doing that. But she's saying, but Hong Kong had 35% of its people in public housing, and they have nationalized healthcare. Right, and that's what Friedman forgot. He forgot that in the monoethnic countries, they have a tendency to help each other. The UK and the United States are the only two industrialized nations that don't have a tradition of helping those at the bottom the way the monoethnic countries do. We're multi-ethnic. And so it's easy to, foist the problem off on somebody that doesn't look like, somebody else, right? But in Japan, that's why a lot of people didn't get how Japan was able to rise as a power. We helped them as a nation via the Dodge policies, which basically said, hey, look, you can't spend more than 1% of GDP on your economy, right? And so they were thinking, well, gee, we don't have to spend here. We have to revive. What do we do? And so out of that came the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, of which I was a guest in 1987 while I was working on my master's degree at Berkeley. Flew to Japan. It was a heck of an experience, okay? And MITI formed a strategy of dumping products, automobile, steel, at below production costs because they were subsidizing labor, something we've never done. My thesis was built around what I'm talking to you about. I wrote my thesis in 1987. I should have just turned it into a book. So where we are today is the full flowering of nations like China, nation states like Hong Kong, Japan, who help each other, help their own. But yeah, as Ms. Zeitgeist pointed out, to an outsider like Milton Friedman who didn't see the racial component, the national racial component, it was like, oh, free market. Not exactly. Not exactly. So, I see. I get you, Harry. I get you. I apologize. Harry, I stand corrected. I apologize. Octavio says Chino is not leading in technology, just manufacturing because of low wages and no labor protections. Hey, they're subsidized though, aren't they? Harry Dunn says, yes, America has a long way to go to be perfect. We are better off than a lot of other countries. True. Very true. And Octavio says that he was talking about tax brackets like social divides. Interesting. Jamal says the Industrial Revolution is over. It's about the technology revolution. But I don't argue that China isn't leading. Okay? China has more people. But in terms of standard of living, we're leading. We have this illusion that China's richer than we are. And they're not. Okay? So, we are by far still the standard for wealth in the world. And that's not going to change anytime soon. I mean, it just isn't. Our problem right now is that we don't have what Nixon tried to install in the 72, which is what's called a guaranteed minimum standard of income, okay? Where in that guaranteed minimum standard of income, it says that if you fall below this minimum, we will subsidize that amount for you to stay here, so you can stay here. But we've got this problem where slowly but surely a lot of our job base is being impeded upon by technology. Okay, so that's a huge problem. And my thought is, if we can get the cryptocurrency revolution going, then we can have a great alternative currency for people to tap into when they need it the most. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. Ms. Like I said, Zinni, if you want to see right-wing economies fall apart, watch the debate between Cambridge economist Haju Chang and libertarian investor Paul Schiff. I'll do that, Ms. Zeitgeist. Actually, we'll do that. Thank you. And Go Warrior says, thanks, sir, with everyone, Scott. He wasn't nice in the tweet this morning, but I agree, and I spent 2 years studying politics and what Obama got us in and what Trump can do. But what did we say Obama got us in? It wasn't Obama. We're not in trouble. And what happened, now, when you say what Obama got us into, what do you mean? So I just want to make sure you've got your, facts straight. So what do you mean by that? So, oh, okay, well, Go Warriors, you want to be closed-minded, bye-bye, okay. But, boy, nothing worse than a young closed-minded mind, Wow. See you later. I'm trying to think, when I was 17, was I that closed-minded? Nope, I'm not. I wasn't. Well, we were afraid by some very real things, like, I remember Reagan reinstituting the draft. We were all afraid that Reagan was going to get us in nuclear war and have us shipped off, and we were going to have to go to Canada to escape it. That's what I remember. Adrian Scott says, Zinni, what do you think about NAFTA? Trump says it was one of the worst disaster deals ever. I was never a fan of NAFTA. You see, that's where I agree with Donald Trump, okay? But again, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I've never had a truck with Trump in terms of policies that had to do with industrial America. My point is that Donald Trump does not understand the real power players in this country and how he's upset them massively, upset them. I was never a fan of it. And I've always been a fan of this. Yeah, have American manufacturing here, but subsidize our wages, because we need to have artificially low. We need to be able to lower our prices to be competitive, but not at the expense of our standard of living. Right now, that's happening. If our wages are depressed and people aren't able to pay as much, then that impacts us in taxes and everything else, and which in turn hurts our infrastructure. Remember, our population is growing. When I was born, our population was at 180 million. Now it's about double that, almost. What does that mean? That's increased wear and tear on our roads and sewers and everything else. Okay, it really is. So, PDI says Trump has done nothing. But anyway, that's what I'm not a NAFTA fan. I've never been a NAFTA fan. I've been a fan of us subsidizing manufacturing here, and we haven't done that. I'm a fan of the value-added tax, or what some people call the national sales tax. So we use that, subsidize our basic industry so that we can maintain high wages at the same time, okay? So, okay, Go Warriors is back, all right? But Go Warriors says he's going to say 2 more things. Cool. John Mark says, that is why my sponsor for my radio station. Yeah, it's low. I see. Okay. But Go Warriors, you haven't answered the question. What did Obama mess up? Okay, you didn't answer that question. Because you were 7. I mean, Go Warriors, one thing you don't understand is to walk into your house and turn on the television and realize that banks are collapsing around the world. That's the scariest, one of the scariest feelings ever. And that's the feeling I had when the market crashed. I was like, what the heck is going on here? George Bush was president at the time. George W. Bush. Okay? So when you say Obama messed things up, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And I ask you, do you know American history? This is a matter of, politics. And again, if you think it is, you're in for a world of disappointment. Just saying. Giorgio says, we need to build high-speed rail from the Bay Area to New York. That would be a start. Ms. Zeitgeist says, I think Reagan is one of the most overrated politicians of the 20th century. I don't know of anyone else that took so much credit for countless things that would have happened without him. No, but Ronald Reagan understood what it meant to be a power player. I like Ronald Reagan. I'll just say it straight out. I like Ronald Reagan. He was a great communicator. He set the tone in a lot of ways for President Obama. Both of them understand power. And again, that's why I say to go Warriors, read The Irony of Democracy by Thomas Dye and L. Harmon Ziegler. Do not be a fool. Don't grow up a fool. Don't grow up a fool. So, and it's about, again, the elite class. Now, the Trump people said they want to drain the swamp of them. How can you drain the swamp of people that have basically been using you to get you there to begin with for their own agendas? Good luck with that. Whew, man. So, John Mark says, Bush bailed the banks, not Obama. Octavio says, the U.S. was not socialist in the 50s, but more socially aware. The best part is that social help just reached the majority white people and not the minority race of the time, blacks and Latinos and so on. And Dexter says, last great Republican president was Theodore Roosevelt. That's hard to argue with. Although I would say, I would put Ronald Reagan close to him. I didn't like Ronald Reagan's policies for the most part. I didn't like that he put the air traffic controllers out of work because my father was an air traffic controller. He lost his job in '83 because of Reagan. Okay? But, that was a horrible, horrible thing to do. Ronald Reagan ushered in the era of deregulation, which got us this overcrowded airline mess that we're in now. But in terms of political power, he understood how to gather it and use it with aplomb. That is what he and President Obama have in common. Okay? That is what he and President Obama have in common. So, Trump does not have that. And that's why I'm talking to you this way, Go Warriors, because you need to learn how your American system works so that you are not blindsided by it or disappointed. So that you understand that you can like a person personally, but not favor everything that they do. You can be critical. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, Octavio Harris called it. Read about military-industrial complex. And not only that, when you have a chance, look at the famous seminal speech by Dwight D. Eisenhower on his way out. One that basically ushered in the existence of the military-industrial complex. Now, what is the military-industrial complex? The military-industrial complex is about that pipeline of people that work for defense contractors that have friends at various places in the federal government who engineer requests for proposals for them for projects. They fulfill the requests for proposals. Their bid's higher than it should be, which makes the overall project higher than it should be in terms of cost, which makes them richer than they should be. And then they do everything in terms of maintaining political power so that they can maintain that gravy train coming to them. And that's the military-industrial complex, and including the need for war. Why? Because without war, there's no need for these different devices. You understand? That's the military-industrial complex. That's what we're talking about. So, Go Warrior says, and he put America in a lot of debt. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Go Warriors, let me tell you something. Regardless of who the president is, our debt's always going up. And the debt goes up from one. You want to know why? The basic reason why our debt goes up, and it's something that no one can really do anything about. You want to know what the dirty little secret is? Because Obama actually slowed down the rate of growth in the debt. Why? Because we grew. We were consistently growing. Obama didn't put us in recession. So when you're consistently taking in money, you're reducing the slowness in the growth of the debt. But let me tell you something, young man. The debt is always growing. You know why? Because our population's always growing. Something we learned in City Planning 101 a long time ago when I was but 10 years old. It's called the multiplier effect. What is that? It means that if you're planning for a hospital or let's take, the Las Vegas NFL situation with a stadium, right? Clark County has its own multiplier. In other words, and you've heard it, you need X amount of parking for Y amount of seats, right? And that's based on their own population needs. But see, those multipliers get adjusted as the population grows. That happens all over the United States. So when you have more population for something, you need more parking. It means you need more money to build the parking. If it's tax money, you need more what? You need more tax money. That's more debt. That's more bond debt. So what happens? The collective debt goes up because there are more of us. So again, you are being affected by something that is in your face. You've never once sat down to do any critical thinking about anything that you're told. It's always been social. That is, I want to make sure that I'm appreciated by these folks, so I'm going to believe this thing. When I was growing up, I disagreed with my mom about stuff. I was a Republican for about 2 years, from the ages of 9 to 11. Thought I knew it all. And then along came Watergate. And then along came Watergate. So be a critical thinker, young man. Challenge your own belief systems, but do your own homework and do the math. And go into urban planning. Because with urban planning, you understand how to analyze what's happening around you. Otherwise, you'll be just one of these people that believes something you don't really know why you believe it. Except, well, so-and-so told me to. Which I think is probably really behind the whole thing, isn't it? And that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. All right. But read The Irony of Democracy by Thomas Dye and L. Harmon Ziegler. So, John Mark says, Kennedy was heading into the right direction with America in 1960, but he never finished his term as president. I think he would have bridged peace with Dr. King, I think. And Octavia says, you have measured debt against GDP, not GNP, GDP. GNP is the old term. And but you remember, debt is a function of also population. So Donna says, hey, Zenny, what do you think of LBJ treatment? Follow that thought through there. I'm not quite getting you there. Ms. Zeitgeist says, January 20th, 2009, the date that all Republicans became fiscal hawks overnight. Ms. Zeitgeist scoring on all cylinders. Thank you. Oh, boy. Oh, this is great. Octavia says $1,000 toilets. Right, exactly. And 831 Scott says, I love Zenny's live streams. 831 Scott's saying, you can go from talking Raiders to having your Las Vegas cop on and the politics. It's always interesting. Thank you. Hey, thank you very much. That means a lot to me. Thanks. I don't like to be one thing all the time because you I was coming home from the gym and they're talking about the sports stuff, and I'm thinking, yeah, but what about the Trump thing? And I've never seen a show that really deals with the topicals at the time at night. Ron Owens had The Morning in San Francisco, right? He had it. But even he fell off by the wayside a bit, from my understanding. I haven't listened to him in quite a while. John Marks is right. I do like a variety. Donis says, I know how to use... No, I don't think Donis is referring to me. But he says somebody knows how to use power. Oh, LBJ. Yes. LBJ knew how to use power and persuasion. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's a fantastic example, Donis. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah. There are some people who point to LBJ for some rather nefarious things, but LBJ had an interestingly good relationship with J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI. Yeah. So, LBJ is a one-term president. He was. He was. He definitely was. Ms. Zeitgeist says, Republicans talk about public debt and completely forget about private debt. Economist John Maynard Keynes showed how, for growth, you have to have public and private debt in the right balance. Absolutely true. And John Mark says, wasn't LBJ a fire starter in Vietnam? Well, we were in Vietnam as far back as before Kennedy, okay? But did LBJ escalate the war? He certainly did. Would Kennedy have gotten us out of the war? I'm still not convinced he would have, because of one thing. Because of what Eisenhower had pointed to in the existence of the military-industrial complex. Because Bob McNamara, who arguably is the father of the microeconomics school of public policy, all right? Because of his, he created the field of operations research, okay? Boy, this is taking me back. Taking me back to my roots. He created operations research at the Rand Corporation. And they basically created the rationale for war. And so because of that, John, I don't believe that Kennedy would have gotten us out of Vietnam. I'm just saying. I think it would have continued, but arguably not at the pace that LBJ increased it to. All right? And even that's for debate. But, yeah, I'll hold to that. Now, Donut says no. Donut, I think you're missing when he says that was his kryptonite. I think John Marks is right about that one. John Marks is right about that one. So, it's a great conversation. You know? Maybe 1/4 of the people we had the night before, 2 nights before, but that's okay. It was earlier, and it was about, the Vegas stuff and everything else. But this is important. This cuts to the heart of our country. Of what, as Lincoln said, were the hard facts that created America. Okay? Power. Unseen power. So, ML, how are you? ML, yeah, you came in. Yeah, man, wow. Missed it. John Mark says, I know America was in the Korean War during the late 50s and the early 60s, I think, correct? Ms. Zeitgeist says, there's a documentary called Virtual JFK where historians speculate what things would have happened like if JFK had lived. I remember hearing about that. I haven't seen it. I have to look that up. Power and money, says Jamal Mills. ML laughs. Octavio says, what South Vietnam needed was economic development, democracy, not war. Yeah, that's true. But, we then completely misjudged the desire of people who don't look like us to kick our butts when we're invading their country. Okay? That was what it was like. Oh, you don't think I'm smart? Oh, you think you're taller than I am? Oh, you're white? Oh, excuse me? No, bam, I'm going to kick your butt. I'm going to be here. I'm going to hide here, here, and here, here. And forget all of your allocations and calculations. Boom. I win. And that is essentially what happened in Vietnam. It was a bad call. Tanner called it. He said the key word is invade. Thank you, Tanner. Thank you. And Ms. Zeitgeist says, in short, these historians said that if JFK had lived, he would not have escalated Vietnam, but civil rights would have taken longer. Yeah, I've heard that before. And I think, you know, I don't know what to think about that. I think part of me, because I grew up with parents who worship JFK, and they would disagree. Because, look, all right, when I was born in 62, I was born August 4th, 1962, same day as President Obama, 1 year later. We had a Lincoln and a Cadillac. We had we owned the 3-story building in Chicago at 7427 Whitworth. And we were doing very well for any family. For a set of personal reasons that I won't go into here, it didn't work out. And my mom went on her own. She went with me, became one of the first reservation sales agents at United Airlines. I say all that to say this. There was a growing black bourgeoisie of which was discovering how to gain power. There goes power again. And Kennedy was very much in tune with those members of African American culture. And so I think in a very quiet way, he could have gotten between he and Bobby Kennedy, because here's what I think is left out of that. What if Bobby survived? Okay? What if the Kennedy clan were intact? I think they would have gotten it done. It would have done a different way. It may not have been as in your face as LBJ, but I think they would have gotten it done. I think Kennedy's way would have been a lot more Machiavellian. You have to remember, John F. Kennedy was the kind of guy who brought all the steel CEOs in and he threatened them. All right? When he needed the prices lowered. So Kennedy was a tough guy in his own right. He could get done what he wanted. He just didn't live long enough to, finish the job. But I would never underestimate John F. Kennedy. So I can't agree with that. Let me put it this way. I guess I just don't want to. How's that? We all have a certain idea of a person. And maybe that's my idea of Kennedy is and such that I don't want to accept the idea that he would not have pushed that. So there you go. Now, there you go. All right. It's, Octavio says, Barry's back. Cool. Octavio says the U.S. needed to remove the dictatorship in South Vietnam and have a democratic government that promoted social and economic development, not escalate with troops. Right. We really missed on that one. We really did. 831 Scott says, I asked this last night too. Where has Miguel Rose been? Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. What's happened with Miguel? No, I haven't banned him. I haven't banned Miguel at all. The only issue that's been of late, and that was with was it Go Raiders? I think it was, because he just flipped. I mean, he wanted to be a moderator. I made him a moderator, but he acted more like he was one of these haters who was a moderator. I mean, you can't have that. So it's like, gee, why are you a moderator if you don't like this or that? So forget it, So that just didn't make any sense at all. That didn't make any sense. All right, it's 1:44. I think I'm going to call it an early one, folks. If you just came in, as one person did. Who was that just came in? Did I miss any questions or thoughts? Don't know that I did. Jamal says power. Yes, power. The JPA meeting is in the morning. At this point, I don't know that I'm going to have a live stream there. I might. If you see a notification pop up, then there you go. It's very easy to do. Very easy to do. Octavio says that happened in Panama, but the invasion was more of a weapons test and removal of power. John Mark says, I'll tune in. All right, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Hope you learned something, Go Warriors. See you later. Okay. Tanner, good talk tonight, he says. It is nice to talk about other stuff. You know, keeps your mind sharp, you know what I mean? Keeps you on your toes and makes you realize that this world is much richer than a few things here and there. But you know something else about having conversations like this is you realize how political power impacts the NFL. Let me finish this. I've got a little time here. Hold on a second, John. I want to make a point. This goes back to the NFL. Roger Goodell is the kind of political operative I'm talking about. Roger Goodell's father was none other than the legendary Charles Goodell. When I first talked to Roger on the phone, the commissioner of the NFL, it was in 1996. And the first hour was spent talking about politics. We talked about his father. Charles Goodell was the first Republican and the only Republican to oppose the Vietnam War. He was the Barbara Lee of his time. That's Roger Goodell's dad. So Roger Goodell was groomed to be a commissioner within the NFL ranks at a very young age. Roger Goodell is more powerful than presidents, and that includes the current one that called him a name. Okay? If you want to understand power, understand Roger Goodell. There you go. All right. Haley says, John Mark says, what happened with Trump has similarities with Vegas, NFL, and the Raiders. I wouldn't compare those two at all. What's going on with Trump, I wouldn't put Mark Davis into that at all. There's no comparison at all. That's a different animal. And I don't think that they're such that they can be compared in this way. But they do relate to each other in terms of in terms of the kind of political climate out there, and how Trump's behavior may very well wreck what Mr. Davis wants to do in Las Vegas. Okay? Because if Trump loses Sheldon Adelson, it may cause Adelson to do other things that could impact the Raiders issue. I'm just saying. That's how all this is tied together. All right? You know Sheldon Adelson doesn't want Donald Trump acting like that at all. Okay? So, got it. So, Ms. Ike said, I didn't know about Roger Goodell as his father was a Taft Republican. Charles Goodell. 60s. Voted against the Vietnam War. Haley says, Donna says, wow, yeah. Haley says, when I say Trump isn't the problem, I mean that he is the symptom of the top to bottom absence of principles and willingness to manipulate rules. If progressives focus exclusively on him, that makes it. I think I agree with what you're saying, Haley. I'd like to hear you say that in voice so I can understand it better. But I think I get what you're saying. And if it is what I say, I agree. You follow up and say it's easier for Republicans at other levels to push their loathsome agenda forward. Yes, got it. Right, absolutely. Now, John Mark says, okay. Haley says, it's the Democrats' failure to reach out and listen to the base that lost them the election. Except Barack. Barack got it. That's what Barack said to Hillary. Hey, you weren't listening. I remember talking to a guy whose name I won't mention, who's a Democratic consultant last year. He was talking about, well, our microanalysis showed this and that, and I was saying, why don't you just speak with one message? He was working for a friend of mine who was running for an office, won't say who she is. I did say she. But the bottom line is, no. He was all tied up in his idea that this micro-targeting works. I think micro-targeting is crap. You speak with one message. And the message doesn't hit with all demographics, you're in trouble. That's it. John Ossoff lost for that reason. John Ossoff lost because at the end of the day, he didn't talk about jobs. And you have people down here who are laborers who are used to making better money, and you know they're caught Some don't even understand how to use the internet, to apply for a position. I'm not calling them incompetent. I'm saying that there's a way that they're used to in the analog world that doesn't apply to a digital world very well. And so they're upset. I don't blame them. So, there you go. All right, everybody. Now I'm officially saying good night. Good night. I'll see you guys later. All right. I'll see you all later. Good night. Good night. Okay, see ya. Good night. Okay, see ya. Thank you. Thank you, Haley. Thank you, Haley and Ms. Zeitgeist and everybody else. Thank you. Great conversation. Thank you. Good night. Good night, John. Good night, everybody. I'll see you guys later. Thank you. See ya.